Shalom, Kahalal, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, Bahashim Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us his truth. Shalom and salutations to all the brothers that push in the word and truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. I'm the brother Yahshua. I'm back with the WW3 Daily update. Shalom and salutations to you as well. So we're going to let old Stephen Banoon from Israeli News here give the update, but first we're going to get some perspective from the scriptures of what's actually going on. All right? The Lord judges the nations, okay? So the war is a pretense for God to judge the nations, right? But first, he's going to restore Judah and Jerusalem, true Israel, all right? The 12 tribes. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. What does that mean? You Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians are going to get your leadership back. And in those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes, all right, at the time of those events, when I restore the prosperity, fortunes, restore to what? To your prominence, to your glory, to your rulership, what you were created for in the first place. All right. Timeout. The timeout corner is over. Now I'm going to put you back where you belong. Restore. Okay. Bring again the captivity. What is the captivity? You're in captivity right now. You're the slaves of the earth. You're going to go from the bottom back to the top where you belong. Bring back, restore the fortunes. Okay. Bring back the captivity. Prosperity will make Judah and Jerusalem prosperous again. Okay. What do we got? Restore, bring back, turn back, restore the fortunes. What fortune? When you're the king, right? Whoever the king of the United States, whoever the king of Europe is, he got a fortune. He's sitting on the throne. He got fortune. Well, this is what it's talking about. The king, restore the fortune of the Jews, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and the northern kingdom, the southern kingdom, and the northern kingdom, all of Israel, and the kingdom of heaven. All right, that's what we're talking about here. Like it or not. I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. What does that mean? God is going to gather all the armies of the world into the valley, into the Middle East. There he will judge them. What does it mean, judge them? I'm going to lay them all flat. I'm going to destroy them completely, where there'll be nothing left but dust and smell of smoke. There will I judge them for harming my people, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians. His special possession for scattering them among the nations and for dividing up his land. What is his land? Israel. So whoever's there now is guilty of dividing it up. Okay? Between the Israelis and the Palestinians, right? And last time I checked, Palestinian, the ancient name for Palestinian is Philistine, who are the sons of Ham, right? The so-called Africans. Anyway, all right, let's read down a little bit. Let me go back and read down, all right? Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, this is God speaking, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. World War III, all right? Multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. What is the day of the Lord? Well, where he judges, he pleads with, he judges the nations for harming his people. There will I judge them, who? The nations, for harming my people. What they did. Okay? Period. Now, here's the World War III update on how far we've come with God doing what? gathering the armies of the world into the Middle East. All right, World War III. The last battle, the Battle of Armageddon, is going to be in the Middle East. So what you see in Eastern Europe, what you see on the Korean Peninsula, what you see in Southeast Asia, right? What you see in the land of Ham, which is called Africa, right? All of that is going to culminate where? The Valley of Yehoshaphat, the Valley of God's judgment, which is in the Middle East, okay? The last battle. Where what will happen? Where what will happen? Where this will happen. Here's the culmination of World War III. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight. What multitude was prepared to fight? All the armies of the world. God gathered them together right here. This is the multitude. I will gather the armies of the world. That's the multitude that was prepared to fight. Against who? Against the Son of God, whose name is Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. All of this is for a reason. What is the reason that God is gathering all of them? There will I judge them for harming my people. What is the judgment? Here's the judgment. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude that was gathered together, which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived but only dust and smell of smoke. That is the judgment of who? Of all the armies of the world. Because as soon as you take away a country's armed forces, they're completely vulnerable. To what? To subjection. What do you mean subjection? Slavery. A king has subjects, does he not? Well, that's what this thing is about. So, how close are we to World War III? Let's let old Stephen Benoon, the Israeli, not the Israelite, the Israeli, let's listen to what he's got to say.
Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live. Got a multitude of subjects to cover. Hopefully the audio is working better for you guys as well today. I think it had switched to the camera audio is what happened. We're going to be talking about the Iran-Saudi Arabia agreement. We're going to be talking about Xi Jinping being reelected for the third term. We're going to be looking at Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister, what he is saying, the shocking statements from the former Israeli prime minister talking about pogroms being done against the Palestinians. And then, of course, there's the issue about less women in political arena in Israel. That's declining, no doubt about it. U.S.-Iran war plan and the situation with Russia, hypersonic missiles being fired into Ukraine as everything steps and heats up over in that part of the world.
Sounds like World War III to me. What does it sound like? It sounds like God is gathering the armies of the world, right, into World War III and eventually into the last battle, the Battle of Armageddon, which is going to be in the Valley of Yehoshaphat, which is the Middle East.
Let's get started right now. I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching, of course, Israeli News Live. We are on March the 10th, 2023. And I'm actually, I think I'm going to be loading a little video up, more of a testimonial. Speaking about testimonies, I want to increase faith for individuals there over on Danoon Institute, our teaching channel today. So definitely check that out as well. And I do have another video I need to load for Patreon. I'll try to do that later this evening. Been having a lot of issues going on, friends. So please keep us in prayer here. It is certainly an attack of the enemy. Let's get right into it. Sputnik News reporting, as many other outlets are, Iran and Saudi Arabia have agreed to restore diplomatic relationship there. They're getting ready to implement that relationship. And what does that mean for Israel? Well, that means that Israel would not be allowed to use Saudi airspace to launch an attack on Iran. By the way, the United States has a great relationship with Saudi Arabia. They were able to use the airspace for Saudi Arabia to launch its attack on Iraq when the Gulf War began. But this situation here, and of course, it wouldn't just be a war with Israel going against Iran, it'd be Israel and the United States in a war against Iran. But this new agreement is going to create a major problem for Israel in that particular war. And that's going to require Israel then firing weapons over its airspace instead. Don't know how that's going to go over with Saudi Arabia either. I do know that Netanyahu had met with the Jordanian prime minister or king, Jordanian king, sorry, and how that they had met, and the discussion was about using their airspace in a war against Iran to be prepared for that. There are talks coming up about that. I'll actually be speaking more in depth about this issue over on Patreon, in fact, tonight, because I am dealing with intel information about this very subject. So this is a very troubling thing to begin with. Also, Xi Jinping being reelected as the Chinese president, he's also been involved in the negotiations with Iran with this nuclear deal, by the way. That's another thing, too. The Saudis are wanting to be able to create nuclear reactors for civilian purposes. And although Israel has always had a fairly good relationship with Saudi Arabia, this is a concerning thing for Israel. That both the nuclear reactors as well as the relationship between Iran and that of Saudi Arabia. But you got to remember, I've always said the BRICS movement, I believe, is part of that New World Order agenda. And we've seen both Saudi Arabia and Egypt have joined the BRICS group of nations there. They are rapidly headed to a New World Order. Don't kid yourself. Even though Israel may act like they're all freaked out about this deal with Saudi Arabia and Iran, Israel too secretly is part of the BRICS nation. They're going to be the head of the New World Order. So although that's not been announced yet, that's all been secretly and clandestinely done.
It's never going to come to fruition. All right, we just showed you who's going to win. So the New World Order is God installing his son, the one that the world ignorantly calls Jesus, whose name in the Hebrew is Yahushua. He's going to install him as the ruler of the planet Earth, right? With King David sitting on the throne and the nation of Israel being in rulership. All right? Not Moab, not no Amalekite. All right? So, whatever you're talking about isn't from the scriptures. All right? You're coming off the dome, buddy.
Nonetheless, it's still happening. I want to go also here to Ehud Barak. He is the former Prime Minister of Israel. And in this interesting interview with CNBC, I want you to listen. He does speak English, so I want you to listen carefully to what he says there. It blew me away that he had the courage to actually stand. And he did take a balance in this. He mentions that there are terrorists within the Palestinian organization that needs to be dealt with. But he also spoke about the Israeli right-wing government is creating a pogroms program, likening that to what happened to the Jewish people against the Palestinians. And
this goes back to dividing up his land, right? What land is that? That's the land of Israel. That's God's land, okay? And right here, all right? There will I judge them. Where? The valley of Yehoshaphat in the Middle East. I will judge them for what? For harming my people who are his people. Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Seminole Indians. His special possession, for scattering his people among the nations, and for dividing up my land They're discussing the dividing of that land right now. Between who? Whoever's over there. That land don't belong to who's ever over there, right? According to this, the people that own that land are what? They're scattered. They're scattered all over the face of the globe among the nations. They're not in the land right now. So whoever is over there is dividing it up between themselves. God's special people, all right? His people, his special possession, are scattered among the nations. They're not in their land right now because they're being punished. All right? Now, after the punishment is over, then God will install them, and we're done. We're done with the update. That's enough. Here's what will happen. Okay, when World War III is over, I just brought this out a minute ago. This is Isaiah 14. All right. This hasn't happened yet. All right. This is a future prophecy after World War III. I'll read it in the Berean. For the Lord will have compassion on Jacob. Once again, he will choose Israel and settle them in their own land. This has not happened yet. Whoever's over there is not these people. All right. The foreigner, the Israelite foreigner, will join with them and unite with the house of Jacob, right? The nations will escort Israel and bring it to its homeland. What? No. Hold on, let's get this in the KJV. And the strangers shall be joined with them. Those strangers are Israelites, right? Be joined with them. The strangers being the Israelite foreigners, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. All Israel. That's all true Israel right there. Now we get into the other nations. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives. This is very important right here. When you read this with understanding, this means everything. And they shall take them captives. Who shall take them captive? The Israelites shall take everybody who made them into slaves. They're going to take those people into slavery. They shall take them captives. Whose captives they were? Well, who had us in slavery? And they shall rule. Who shall rule? The Israelites shall rule over everybody that had us oppressed. That's all the other nations. Rulership is what the kingdom of heaven is about. Right? This is about the rulership of the kingdom of heaven. Plain and simple. That's what this war is about. Whoever wins the war will rule the earth, right? Well, I just showed you who's going to win. Right? Let's get that in Revelation. And we'll end it. Revelation 19. Okay? This is during World War III, right? They're going to stop fighting each other in World War III, turn around and fight against the rider on the white horse, right? Who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, right? And the armies which were with him, the angels, right? So Jesus and the angels are going to get into World War III. And here it is. Here's what happened. And I saw the beast, NATO and the EU, and the kings of the earth and their armies, okay? All the nations of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on, gathered together to make war against the one you called Jesus. Okay? And why were they gathered together? They were already gathered together because they were fighting each other. Then they saw the fourth dimension open up, and here come Jesus and the angels, right? And them white horses that you call a UFO, the chariots of Israel, they were gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, that would be the one you call Jesus, and against his army, that's the angels. And here's what happened. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast and them that worship his image. These were both cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. Okay, so they lost. Right? Who lost? The beast, the kings of the earth and their army lost the war. They lost World War III, right? They were laid flat, pursuant to 2 Ezra 13 and 11, right? The innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived but only dust and smell of smoke. So they lost the war. And what happens? Whoever wins the war becomes the king, right? Well, who won the war? Okay, right here. Here's the war. To make war. Who's making war against who? Well, right here it says all the armies on the earth stop fighting each other to make war against him that sat on the horse, the one you call Jesus, and the angels, his army, the heavenly hosts. Who is going to defeat the celestial beings? It's pretty simple addition. Okay? And we already saw the outcome right here. Here's the outcome right here. All right? So, if all the armies of the world lost the battle, and the one you ignorantly call Jesus, right, won, well, what nation does the one called Jesus come from? He comes from the nation of Israel, the Israelites. He's an Israelite from the tribe of Judah. So that's who's going to rule. Point blank, period. It's real simple. But it's a mystery to those that don't want to be in subjection. I get it. Nobody wants to be a slave. But whose turn is it? It's your turn. All right? Plain and simple. No hate. Right? So with that, we hope that the elect were edified. Until next week, shalom.